You are down with.
Yo, Dave.
What up?
Drop the beat.
We like it old school. You know how we do this.
What you listening to?
The brothers from the 818.
91331.
Pacoima, California.
What's up, Dave?
What's up, Caleb?
The real, the raw, the relevant.
No script.
We invite you into our conversation. What's going on, people?
Let me just say this.
Thank you for joining us tonight.
You are down with.
The brothers from the 818. Ha ha! Here we are. Here we go again. Brothers from the 818. We are back with part 4 of our series on police reform. My name is Dave, as you know, kicking it one man, Caleb. Caleb, before you say anything, I got a question, man. Are we gonna finish this? Because last time we still on question 2, and we're starting week 4 or part 4. How long is this gonna go on, man? What's your thoughts?
It's going to go on until we've felt like we've addressed the issues, and maybe we'll get a different panel, but we need to continue the discussion. In the last discussion, we were really talking about causality and cause and effect, colonization, slavery, the civil rights movement, segregation and discrimination, and how those are the vehicles and the reasons for, or that contributes to, the systemic and the institutional racism that I believe we were all talking about. I want to hear from the panel, and we need to talk about white privilege. It came up, and I was surprised that it almost took 3 times for us to sit down, but it came up finally. And we, as we continue this discussion, we need to talk about whether or not Black Lives Matter is something that is a deterrent for is it in the way? Because we know that a lot of people think of it as a divisive organization. It's not unifying the country. So there's a lot to go on, man. There's a lot to talk about. I can't wait to hear what the panel has to say today.
Yeah, me too, man. You said if we have to get a new panel, I'm gonna have to resort to bribery, man. I like these cats. I like this panel.
Me too.
And I'm hoping that they're willing to stick with us. I asked you that question kind of facetiously because the truth is, I want to keep going until we got nothing more to say. Right?
I don't know if this panel is going to ride with us for the next year though. So it might be a little tough.
It might be, but if we can, hey, if we have to put a pin in it and do something later, we'll figure it out. But let's get into it, man. Let's get into it. So, like you said, we had for those of you who are just catching us on part 4. My first question is, where you been? And then The second question, or the second thing is, just for diplomacy's sake, just want to reintroduce everybody. We got Mike. Mike is a police officer in a major, large metropolitan police force on the West Coast. We got Zach. Zach is in education. He's also a community advocate, just not only for Black men, but for men, for youth. He's a big movement for the student population as well, and just active in the community. And we got Damani, originally from the West Coast, Oakland, California. Some call it Beirut, but he lives in the Midwest now. And each of these men have just brought a very interesting perspective and have just taken transparency to new levels. So y'all hear from me all the time. I'm done. People, men, welcome back to the brothers from the 818.
Appreciate you having us.
Yeah, good intro. So, yeah, Caleb, you mentioned white skin privilege, and I'll speak on behalf of that as a person with white skin. I look at white skin privilege, and you guys can disagree with me with this, I'm sure, as a theory with and without any practical application. It's a theory. So before I was even born, uh, my dad applied to be a mailman, and the United States Post Office told him, if you were black or brown, we could hire you now. My GPA has had to be that much higher than everybody else's to get into all the colleges I've attended. Preferential points were given to uh, black, brown, and females for the police department that I was hired on. I've had to be that much better than everybody else to get hired onto the police department. And to this day, they're still hiring protocols and preferential treatment for those who are non-white. So in my experience, is that the experience of every white person on this planet? Of course not. But in my experience, it's a theory with very little practical application for me. So we can agree to disagree on that. But you also, Caleb, mentioned Black Lives Matter. And my opinion on Black Lives Matter is that if we're talking about police reform, which is what the topic of this is, I see little coming from Black Lives Matter as an organization as far as reform. I look more of them as a punish. We want payback for what's been happening. And I don't think that does any, I don't think we progress with that, because let me tell you from the culture of police what happens when you defund the police. It's not the money. All they did was take away our overtime. So, which they were going to take away because of COVID anyway in the economy. But it almost as if you're being punished for something one officer in Minnesota did. And what happens with the punishment is a demoralizing. And we back off. We say, okay, you're going to get the exact police work you deserve for this one. And when we scale back, crime goes through the roof. This war on cops, this blaming cops, we're all racist, we all need to be defunded. Crime is through the roof in every major city in this country because cops have scaled back. Now, ironically enough, more Black lives are being lost now because police have scaled back. Once we stop doing the traffic stops and getting the guns off the street, once we stop doing the ped stops, getting guns off the street, arresting the shooters, crime is through the roof right now in every major city. Even traffic. We've slowed down on traffic stops just because of the climate. Hey, I'm not going to get involved in anything and jeopardize my career over a traffic stop. This time last year, we had 5 deaths as related to traffic accidents. We have 26 already. Just the traffic enforcement. Now, those are not all Black lives, obviously, but the inner city shootings are, and in my division, they are. We haven't had this many murders in over 10 years. And that's because officers are scaling back. So you want to defund the police, you're demoralizing the police, and we scale back, which actually makes the Black community suffer. Which, by the way, I got to South Central in 2004, and I've gotten more positive encounters this last year and a half than I have in my entire career. The Black community has approached me more. Hey, we need you guys now more than ever. So I wonder if a lot of the backlash is coming from the actual community, or if it's people who think we're doing something wrong, but don't. I mean, are any of these interviews being done by people or policymakers? Have they ever stepped foot in the area they're trying to advocate for? Because in my experience, we're not as hated as it sounds. We're hated by policymakers, we're hated by politicians, but the community themselves are appreciative now than I've ever seen.
Hey, Mike, man, I appreciate you. I appreciate your perspective. And in regards to white privilege, I would say, welcome to the club, man. As far as you saying that you have to work harder, because I've been working harder than most of my counterparts as long as I've been in school and employment. But I think it speaks to what I opened with, and speaking about the 400 years of the white man having a head start in this country, and how the black man has been forced to have to find equal footing after slavery and colonization, the civil rights movement, segregation, all the discrimination and issues that the community felt in the 70s or 80s. But this is not about me. This is about this panel. So let's open it back up to the panel. Zach, Damani, you guys have anything that you would like to chime in, or Dave, do you have anything?
Yeah,
Gotta throw this out, Bonnie, because when you go, you know you're gonna go. So let me just throw this one out there.
right, go.
I like how you said it, Caleb. Welcome to the club. Mike, I've heard that argument before, and honestly, I can't even disagree with you about the policies that have been in place in your lifetime. And I'm assuming you're a few years younger than myself. You and Zach are probably around the same age.
43.
You said what?
43.
Yeah, so you guys are around the same age, right? Yeah, I might be putting some years on you, Zach. But there during your lifetime and when I say your lifetime, your adult lifetime, I think there have been a lot of policies in place to slow the rise of the white man down. And let me put that a different way, to accelerate the opportunities for people of color, namely black men. Because when you have a 400-year head start, and maybe we'll discuss this one next time, but there's a video, I think we played it a couple weeks back, Caleb. It's called Rat Race. And it's basically, and it shows, here's the race, and it's go, and as soon as they say go, a railroad bar drops in front of the black people, and the white people take off. And all of the things that happened as a factor of society, from gentrification to policies to arrests to stumbling to everything that happened, redlining, etc., all the way up into 1965 or so. And then they said go, and they're already a lap behind, but that lap equals roughly 400 years. And so policies were implemented. Affirmative action. I'll be the first to admit, I went to a very prestigious school in Northern California because of affirmative action. I had decent grades. I had, a booming SAT, but affirmative action got me in there, right? But it didn't help me graduate, right? It didn't help me get through the policies. There were things that said, let's slow down this, increase the opportunities for this. And most of those policies that existed in the 80s don't exist anymore. Right? And there's some other things going on. Like you said, there's still some hiring policies today where you got to work that much harder. So when Caleb said, welcome to the club, he was reading my mind. That's exactly where that comes from. So I'm done with that. Damani, go.
Yeah, I wasn't going to add to that, but that was a good point by Caleb as well. I wanted to address the Black Lives Matter part. As a community activist, I believe in the Black Lives Matter in its original context. Its original context was a battle cry after Trayvon Martin was killed. The Black Lives Matter, that's an organization, is a whole different animal. And it has multifaceted focuses that has nothing to do with Black people. So I don't support that in this way. And in the political sense, when they're using it, it's a racist trope. It's just speaking to all Black people. When they say, oh, Black Lives Matter is coming to our town, so we got this militia group, we out here holding this fence. Who are you really talking about? They're not talking about the three ladies that run. They're talking about Black people in general when they use that term. So people throwing that out there, well, what about Black Lives Matter? What about this? What they're really saying is about Black people, period. To avoid conflict and that and how it affects political, Mike, it is about punishment. Because when something transgresses against Jews, they don't start talking about these flowery terms of how we're gonna change stuff. It's about punishment. When something transpires against white people, it's about punishment. When something transpires against Mexican, it's about punishment. When it gets to black people, all of a sudden, oh no, it's about GoFundMe. Oh, it's about doing jumping jacks. Oh, it's about lift every voice and sing. No, it's about punishment. You kill one of us doing absolutely nothing, eating ice cream in my house in my underwear. I'm expecting punishment. Now, if I'm committing a crime, which we said in our earlier broadcast, I'm in the middle of committing a crime, I robbed a bank, I'm out dumping shots. Yeah, I'm expecting to get shot. Yeah, I'm expecting to do 20 years. I didn't kill 6, 8 people. Yeah, I'm not debating that. Oh, because I'm black, I should get a lesser sentence. No, I'm not debating that. But again, Tamir Rice, 11-year-old kid playing in the park. No, because you shot 11-year-old white kid, you know what time it would have been. They wouldn't have been talking about, oh, we're going to defund the police. We need to come up with some new laws. No, they wrote that law that day. Oh, the first officer to shoot another one. And I, Mayor so-and-so, am declaring it would have been done already. We wouldn't have had a news conference. No preacher would have to come out with a perm and say, yeah, this is what we're going to do. No, it had got done right then and there. Punishment. Because when you arrest us, it's about punishment. They don't care about my upbringing, my education, or lack of. It's about punishment. Yes. Black Lives Matter. Yes, it is about punishment. Because again, you ain't put a knee in the neck of some white dude and on national TV in front of everybody. And when it does, we all gonna be, black people gonna be eating popcorn. Like, okay, we gonna see how this gonna work. Oh, they gonna protest for a year? No, it's gonna get handled within them weeks. The mayor gonna resign. Everybody gonna, oh, the chief of police gonna step down. Oh, the white community, they just not having it. You gonna see all this reform. Did they have a meeting about it? No. President himself was like, oh, you need a legislation. He gonna bark on Congress. He gonna talk to the Senate. Y'all better do something. And it happens. No voting needed. But when it's black people, it turns into something else. Oh, well, let's see how this long it goes. Let's see how much money they can raise. Let's see if they want to sing the national anthem over here. Let's see if the basketball teams want to put some stickers on the floor. No, it's about punishment. Now, again, are there some good cops? Yeah, I know some. Are there some bad cops? Oh, yeah. Know some of them too. We looking at the terms of historical significance in the laws that we follow. I mentioned earlier the off-camera conversation with the group. The laws that came into place after slavery was ended, during the period of Reconstruction. The Reconstruction was being dismantled. They said, okay, we're gonna kind of give things back to the Southern slave owners in a newfound way, hence the word Reconstruction. And the first thing they enacted were the Black Codes. And the first Black Code for newly emancipated slaves that didn't know what to do. They free, we can go about just like any other citizen. At least that's what the Constitution said, right? Once they, President Lincoln signed that in, they imitated the white people they saw in town, who previously didn't have to work like they did. So they hung out in town square with their feet up, talking. Then they fit the tune. They had their little cup, and they was talking. And the black people saying, "Yeah, what you doing over here, boy? We gonna do this. We ain't got to work. We gonna do the same thing you do." So they start hanging out, and talking about old times. Oh yeah, remember that song we used to sing? They said, "No, we gotta do something about that." They created the first law, loitering. But it wasn't for white people. It was for these black people. You loitering. Loitering today is in full effect. My mother lives in Richmond, California, and there's a Home Depot right down the way. Illegal immigrants all over there waiting to work, hopping in people's truck to go get work. No one calls the police. There's no loitering. There's big signs. There's no loitering. They there, hundreds of them. 3 black dudes go there. Police roll up right on spot. Gentlemen, y'all got to move along. He said, "You talking to us?" They're like, "No, we talking to you 3." Because they're loitering. Well, I'm trying to work just like that, and I speak English. These immigrants, they shouldn't even be on this soil. They ain't got no rights. Loitering today. And subsequent laws have been built upon it, and they're all racially motivated in some way. All of where National Guards had to come into play have all been incidents in Black communities. The riots in the 60s, lots. Chicago riots, riots in New York. They were in Black neighborhoods. National Guard ain't showed up in a white neighborhood yet. We in 2021, we're like, okay, there ain't no disgruntled white people. They are. They just don't think to do that. That's only targeted towards us. And we're to a point now that we're almost immune to it. We're like, this is common practice. We feel like now we're not making enough noise if they don't show up. Or our cause is not just if National Guard don't show up. We just upset at something at the time. And Zach mentioned something about accountability too. My opinion, and again, I'm expressing this as my personal opinion. Black people want personal accountability just as much as white people. But at the same time, white people really don't want Black people to have accountability because, again, if we had accountability on our end, you ain't gonna need the police anymore. You're not gonna need all of these services and all of these prisons that they building. They're not building them in hopes that you don't show up. They already got a plan. You're gonna fill them up. And they're planning jobs accordingly. But if we had our own accountability right now, which again, in my opinion, I figured that's why Minister Farrakhan is trying to be censored at every chance he show up. They trying to knock him down anyway because he already got the blueprint. And I'm not talking about selling bean pies and newspaper. He's like, dude, we have a way to be self-sufficient. We don't need none of that. It's in us. If we just, as Black women, just stop. We ain't doing perms and nails and all that. That's funding the Korean economy and not our own. If we not buying other Black people, we not buying it. That's accountability on us. Accountability as Black men. Okay, you gang banging. Okay, let's get your mindset into what you really supposed to be. We got gangbangers all over America. That's Black. Putting in work. They ain't shot near a white person. I still don't know one. They knocking off other Black people. And again, I'm not saying you should just go on a tirade, we need to kill the whites. No, that's not what I'm saying. But your mindset is you're killing your own people. You have to be accountable in that. And in you not killing other Black men, that leaves more fathers around. There's many kids that don't have fathers. We need more of them around. And then we need a transition between us, those of us who are educated, those of us who have PhDs and master's degree in psychology and all. Okay, we need to start examining some of these brothers to get them through the trauma that they went through in their time frame. We're not talking about 1892. We talking about 1992. What happened from there to here? Let's fix that. That's a form of personal accountability. Now, again, white people, when we make that transition, there shouldn't be no pushback. Don't jump up like, oh, I ain't doing that. Oh, that's reverse racism. They start making up stupid stuff. Like, what are you talking about? I thought you wanted us to solve our problem. Black lives matter. No, blue lives matter. No, blue lives matter. But then when Asians come up and say, we'll end all Asian hate, there's no white counterpart saying, we ending all hate. No one's saying nothing. It's only when you speak. It's only when you speak as a Black person.
Zach, what do you think about that? What do you think about what Damani had to say?
Well, it's interesting. First I was thinking, let me go back to what Mike kind of spoke about when he was talking about the white privilege and so forth, right? And he used that example. And forgive me, Mike, if I got the years wrong or whatnot, but you were talking about the Postal Service, and I believe it was your father.
It was like mid-70s, early 70s.
Mid-70s, early 70s, whatnot, right?
Mm-hmm.
And as I sat there and listened, what was interesting, So that as you told that story, right? I thought about white privilege, right? And to go kind of deep with it is when you telling that story, and I'm trying not to personalize it as much, but just because you told the story, but that is white privilege in itself, right? Understanding, right, and having the ability to tell that story and feel that way, right? For a lot of people, they'll feel that is white privilege in itself. Because of years, centuries, and everything else, we have not even had the opportunity, right, to be in even on the forefront of having an opportunity to do a lot of the different things that, say, for instance, your father had, even the opportunity to be turned down, right? The opportunity just to be turned down. That's white privilege in itself, right? To even have the ability to be somewhere, right, at one time or another, that was white privilege. And over the years, white privilege has expanded, not only just in the physical sense, but in the mental sense as well, right? And for so many folks of color, African American, white privilege is so deep that it's very, very hard to feel any sense of empathy for Caucasians at times because of everything going on. And when you start thinking of white privilege, right, at time or two, some folks will say, hey, we don't want much. We just want a chance, right? We just want an opportunity. But the blinders come on, and it's almost at times we feel like, hey, you know what? We're asking for too much. We can't even get a crumb, so to speak, at times. Many individuals feel that way. And unfortunately, other races, they don't see that. We've been fighting this fight, the good fight, for so long that we are trying to navigate, trying to figure this out. So when you talk about white privilege, right? The fact alone that, hey, you know what? It's not just in the physical sense, it's the mental sense. And the mental part is that sometimes nobody sees it. You say, hey, you know what? We don't see it, we don't hear it, we don't understand it. But that's the privilege. That's white privilege in itself, to not even have to even think about it, to not even have to feel it, right? You ask those questions, right? Or things are said, but those are things that you don't have to worry about. And that's where the white privilege part comes in. Now, when we talk about Black Lives Matter, right? And I'm like Damani, Black Lives Matters. It's been so what's the word? Someone help me out. There's so many different directions it can go in.
It's been convoluted, yeah.
Convoluted, thank you. Right? But Black lives do matter. And then it goes back to when I think of Black Lives Matter, this is my own personal opinion, right? It is a cry. It is a cry to a variety of different things. It's to bring awareness to what's going on out there that have to do with African American lives, essentially with policing. It has to do with when I think of Black Lives Matter with the white privilege, right? That's part of it. There's so many different factors, so many different things that Black Lives Matter, right, have to do with our everyday lives as African Americans and people of color, right? So when you look at it from just a whole, right, white privilege, Black Lives Matter, these are systems that we as African Americans have put in place, not only to protect us, but to help guide us, to help us fight the good fight. These are things that we have done to help us move forward the best way we know how. And in some situations, we do an excellent job with it. Some situations, we need some work. But these are things that have been put in place to make sure that us as a people, as a culture, are being heard, are being represented, excuse me, to make sure that we are continuing to move forward, because nobody's doing these things for us. We don't have the privilege. We haven't had those opportunities that have been afforded to others over time. So we continue to, you know what, we come up with Black Lives Matter. We come up with terms of recognizing what's going on the other side, white privilege. We continue with things such as that, sayings, stances, just everyday things to help us put ourselves in a position to recognize that, you know what, we not only need to continue to fight for ourselves because we're not getting the same representation that we need, but to bring awareness, to bring that educated background, an educated look. So when we start talking about all those things, it's very necessary. Because if we're not, then who will for us? And it's just not happening now. This has been going on for a long time.
Right.
So.
Mike, you want to respond to any of that?
Yes, absolutely. So, yeah, and not to create any confusion or anything, I was not bringing up those stories or instances in my personal life to looking for empathy or anything. I was just bringing up examples of trying to explain that it's more of a theoretical concept for me personally than actually having it affect my life. And, you know, my goal is to be full-time professor, and it's not going to be my white skin that gets me there. It's going to be my work ethic, full-time cop, part-time adjutant, full-time USC doctorate student. That's what's going to get me. It's not going to, my white skin, nobody's going to hand me anything because of my skin. And that's why I have a difficult time with this. You know, some may look at, oh yeah, he's a professor because he's white. It's like, I busted my ass to get here. That's what got me here. So I know there's no profanity on the show, but anyway, so it wasn't for empathy. It was just, you know, just to explain some personal life situations. But I wonder, the more we talk, if, you know, the amount of focus we have on race is creating more of a divide than it is moving forward. And what I mean by that is, I know I'm speaking about years ago, but in 16, during a presidential debate, Dr. Ben Carson was talking, and he had my vote way before when, you know, but I don't think he was charismatic enough, or whatever the reason. He just was too monotone. But he said in that interview, he was interviewed by an NPR reporter, and the reporter asked him, why don't you ever speak on race? And he said, well, I'm a neurosurgeon. And the reporter didn't understand what that meant. And he said, see, I operate on what makes that person who they are. It's not your skin color. It's not your hair color. And every instance that involves race divides us more than anything else. And he said, we're the United States of America. And I feel that the more and more focus, the more and more divided we get when we talk about race. And colorblind is now a racist thing to say, because if I'm not seeing your color, I'm not seeing who you are. And so who's right? Is Dr. Ben Carson right when saying it's your brain who makes you who you are, not the color of your skin? Or is it, no, if you're not seeing my race, you're not seeing who I am? I don't know, but I know that there's two sides to it. And I know that we're so divided right now, and we've never talked about race more than now. So I don't know what the answer is, but I know that it doesn't feel like we're going in the right direction. And I want to just go through use of force real quick, and then I'll be done. So there was a pastor in Arizona, and he was a big advocate of police reform, and he was borderline anti-police. There's a clip of him walking down the street with a bullhorn. We want his gun, we want his badge, blah, blah, blah. And he volunteered to go through a police force option simulator. And this is all in the news. You guys can find the clip, I'm sure. And when he went through those scenarios, he shot when he wasn't supposed to. He didn't shoot where he was supposed to, and the make-believe suspect killed him. And at the end, he was humble enough to say, you know, this is not easy. You got to make decisions quick, and compliance is huge. And we can have a whole discussion on compliance, because each and every one of these scenarios are different in their own way. Officers' actions, suspects' actions, etc. But this general of the killing, each one of these is specific in its own way. Each one of these scenarios, some had weapons, some didn't. Some's actions. Michael Brown didn't have a gun, but he punched Darren Wilson in the face and grabbed his gun. So each one of these is different. So, but I've heard you'll never know what it's like to be a black man. And it's true. I never will. So to speak on behalf of what a black man is feeling or what a black man should do or what they shouldn't do, I'll never do. But at the same time, can we apply that rationale to police? If you've never had to strap a gun belt on and get in that situation, should you really be critiquing what the officers did?
I would love to address that. I got a couple areas I want to address, and I don't. There's so many things I want to do, but I don't want to go away from where we are. But I'm just going to touch on a couple things, and I'll give it back and so forth. And that last part is specifically, I'm in IT. I'm in education, and what I do is not easy. I truly believe that the four of you can't do what I do, and it's not because I'm greater than you. It's because I'm trained. A surgeon, being a surgeon, is not easy, but they're trained, and because of my training, I'm held to a higher accountability. Because you're a surgeon, you're held to a higher accountability. Because you're a social worker, you're held to a higher accountability. Other people can't do what you do. As a police officer, you're trained and you're held to a higher accountability. So yes, it's easy for all of us to look from our ivory towers and look at someone else about what they should do. I implement policies all day long and people are like, you're dumb. Why were you doing that? You don't have my burden. You don't get the weight that I carry. So no one's saying it's easy. We're talking about the accountability, but you already said that they should be held accountable. So the other part that I really want to point out is that you mentioned about not seeing color, and colorblind is a problem. And I believe both of those are problems, because I want you to see me as a black person. I see you as white and see a woman as a female. I see a child as a child. And it's not what you see, it's how you deal with what you see that matters and that makes you who you are. I see you as a white man, but I treat you as a human, right? Doesn't mean I'm ignoring the fact that you're white. It just means I don't do anything with that information in the negative, nor in the positive, nor should you do for me, right? And that's in that sense. The divide that you talk about, yes, we talk about race, and race is a division, but ignoring the race doesn't close the divide. It leaves the divide so no one can cross it. And then we act like it's not there. And then we move on. And 400 years later, 50 years later, 20 years later, it doesn't take an entire lifetime. Just look at a generation. Nothing has changed because we chose not to address it. We just said we're not going to talk about it. So that's the other thing. If you take money away from education, students fail. If you take money away from hospitals, people die. If you take money away from the police, crime goes up. You remove resources, and that which made the agency, the entity, the community successful goes away. I don't want to defund the police. And I know a lot of people throw that out there. I don't want to defund the police. I want to change the way it operates. And so, and you mentioned that, and I think a lot of people, I've heard a lot of comments this week, I'm sure Caleb as well. You need to talk about defunding the police. Why? Why? Everything you take money from dies. If I defund you, you're going to lose your house. If I defund you, you're going to get skinny. Why? Because you're not going to be able to eat. If I defund you, you're going to start committing crimes because you got to make it. I don't want to defund. I want to organize and change the way it works. That's it. I'm done. Go. Anybody.
I was going to just chime in real quick. Black Lives Matter. It is certainly convoluted. I'm glad that I mentioned it because we went down this rabbit hole and we're still stuck in question number 2 and week number 4. I don't like how police reform or defund the police has been coined because Dave, you know this. I consider myself above all things an American. And in many regards, I consider myself a conservative. And I've heard Mike talk about often being feeling like he is the only conservative in the room. But, you know, I didn't spend 24 years in the military, half of that as an officer deployed overseas, and not have a sense of patriotism, right? And so I consider myself a conservative, God and country, right? Seek to preserve the way that things have been and improve. I again, that sense of identity comes from my experience in the military, but I also believe in minimal government interventions, and I certainly don't like the idea that I have to pay higher taxes if I make more money, right? And I think that we should be talking about at some point welfare reform and judicial reform and pharmaceutical reform and all of those other things that are concerns and draining the money out of our community. And me identifying myself as a conservative, I also believe in traditional values and morality and respect and humanity. And I'm also in many regards a religious conservative as well, because all of those values are tied to how I live my life. And so I don't want you to feel like, I'm not with you, Mike, because I'm certainly a patriot and I see issues in this country. I just feel like, and I think that you mentioned it early on about improving the police force. And in the military, we talked about improving our foxhole, right? And as a nation, we just need to continue to make strides and improve the conditions that our citizens are in, regardless of the color. And I'll be quiet.
I'll chime in right there. The first point of, are we divided? I feel that's only a talking point when the pressure gets on and whites have to examine all the things that have already been done and where we gotten to this point. No one was saying we are, oh, that's divisive, we're a divided nation when slavery was gone. No one had to, we're divided, we're not we're unified, we're not a separate nation when Jim Crow went on for 100 years. The Civil Rights Movement, which gained its prominence because the invention of television brought it around the world. The people in the South knew that this is how white people got down. People in the North was like, oh man, that would never happen. And they seen on TV like, oh man, they never seen white people spitting mad just because you showed up. We was divided then. When we had the first Black president, we wasn't united then. They tried to pacify us, oh, we're a post-racial America. We had 1,400 militias that was founded on the day Barack Obama was elected in office. They wasn't signing up to protect him. And Barack Obama had the biggest protection, Secret Service detail of any president yet, because he was the first Black one. And American citizens wanted to kill him. We was divided then. And the backlash came, America elected Donald Trump. Was we united then? Did we miss that segment? Was we united and I missed it? We was divided then too. So we being divided now is no different. And we're not fixing the breach, so to speak, just by saying that as a catchphrase, and we haven't done anything to fix any of that. You mentioned Ben Carson. From my family's perspective and our background as standing firm on being righteous Black people, my mother pressed on us, you strive to be the best of Black people, not the worst. Because being the worst of Black people is easy. I can easily be a drug addict. I can easily be a crackhead. Let me just try it a couple of times. I've been walking the streets, being a zombie, for breaking into people's houses too. But my parents pressed hard on us to be the best of Black people. Ben Carson, we hung on his every word. When Donald Trump approached him and said, Ben, I want you to be a part of my administration. I want you to be the Secretary of HUD and Housing. A righteous Black man would have first stepped back and said, Mr. President, with all due respect, I have to decline. You know I'm a brain surgeon. You got the wrong job title. You mean Surgeon General. Seeing that this is a Nobel Prize person, the first person to separate two twins, Joey by the head, he wasn't just some dude that was a rapper. He was like, no, you skip all that. You lived in a house before, we gonna put you in housing. And he took it. With no knowledge, and when he got there, he just okayed whatever they put on there. Oh yeah, okay, that's a great idea. I don't know what that means. And the people in real life, dude, do you know what you just signed? You know how many Black people you displaced? You know how many, we keep using these pet phrases, people of color. I don't care about people of color, I'm talking Black people. And I'm pro-Black. That doesn't make me anti anything, but I'm pro-Black in my people. So your Ben Carson analogy struck a chord with me, like, and it's only white people that drop his name like that. White people don't do that. He was done from the beginning. Because if that was David, like, no, you mean I'm supposed to be head of your information systems track? That is my profession.
Right.
He's not just a dude that just, you got good scores. Anybody can do this job. You got to have some knowledge and expertise because you're writing this legislation for the whole nation. And when he didn't do that, like, no, I'm honored, Mr. Trump or President Trump, but you mean the Surgeon General? Oh no, ain't no Black man gonna be there. Oh no, I got somebody for that.
Damani, you got me smirking, man. You got me smirking, man.
It is what it is, Cal.
No, I love it. I love the exchange. I want to make sure that we all kind of have a chance to kind of wrap up our thoughts before we wrap up this conversation for today. And so I will go to Zach, and then Mike, and then Damani, and then Dave. You could close us out, brother.
All right.
Well, once again, brothers from the 818, I appreciate it. Guys, great conversation, enlightening, and there's a lot of work to be done, as we all know, right? And it's going to take the efforts of Damani and his perspective. It's going to take the efforts of Mike and his perspective, and Dave and Caleb, your perspectives as well, and mine. And it's going to take raw and just uncut thoughts and feelings and all of those things to get the conversation started. And with all that being said, we can't make any progress if we're unwilling to do the work. And being a part of this right now, it tells me that this is a start of doing that work. And I appreciate you guys allowing me to be a part of it. And I look forward to continuing to be a part of it as well. Doesn't matter what perspective it is or where it's coming from, there's something to learn out of everything that's said. So that being said, I appreciate it.
Yeah, I'll just say real quick, and then pass it off to Damani. And Zach, you mentioned this earlier when I was, referring to some of my experiences and ideology, and you said, yeah, I've been hearing that my whole life. And just as you guys I've been hearing your side my whole life, I've been hearing your guys' side my whole life. I guess my question is, so now what do we do? I mean, we've been hearing each other's sides, so now what? That's all I got.
There you go.
Well, I got an answer, but that's for another show. And and again, it's definitely an honor and a privilege to be with you, brothers. Definitely. Again, being firmly planted in who I am as a man, the people I come from, we want to shirk away from the responsibility, but we're Black first before we're anything. And we got to address everything in that perspective. Because whether we like it or not, everybody else is. Mexicans right now is getting $50 billion checks wrote from our government, and they're not even legal citizens. And when they get the money, they not like, oh, we want to sprinkle some with the people of color. We got Asian hate crime groups getting millions of dollars from the same government that's supposed to protect us, but they ain't did nothing. And they not like, oh, hey, we need some Black people to come get some of this with us. It's only them. It's say specifically Asians and Pacific Islanders. Ain't no Black people in there. Ain't no, this my homie that was in a rap group with me. It's us. They start writing checks to Jews. They could be married to Black women. They could be married to what? So why are we stigmatized if we do the same thing? It's about us. It always has been. And with that, I bid you brothers good tidings, goodwill to the next time.
You know, I'm glad that I brought up the Black Lives Matter, because there was varying opinions about Black Lives Matter, and I think we all kind of could probably landed on that it is evolved into something other than what it was originally designed to do. But I'm glad that we all had a chance to speak on that. And also, I like what Mike said, like, where are we going to go now? Besides jumping on the brothers from the 818, what are you doing? You know, and I'll go out there and say it, because I think of myself as a conservative, but I don't think of myself as a Republican, because the Republican Party, in my opinion, didn't represent my interests, right? And so when President Donald Trump was in office, I made a point to say, you know what, I'm going to have to speak about, I'm going to have to speak on the things that I don't agree with in his policies, in his service to our country. And so I made a point to do that, using this podcast as a platform. But I continue to express my feelings and outside of this platform as well. So I love the question, Mike. What are we going to do now? And hopefully we could continue to have this discussion and come to an agreement how we could move forward. Dave?
I got so much appreciation for what we're saying, but I'll close with this, and just bear with me. George Foreman, before the big fight with Ali, Rumble in the Jungle, Ali was talking all this trash about I'm gonna do this, that, and the other, and they said, Foreman, what do you think? He said, everybody got a plan until they get hit, and these ain't never let me down. Back in 2001, 2002, they reintroduced a show called American Gladiators that we remember from the 80s. And there was one of the ladies on there, her name's Gina Carano. She was big in MMA, and she's an actress now and doing some things. And she was one of the gladiators, and one of the ladies going against her was talking trash. And she said, some people talk about it, some people be about it, and she has to get through me. You ask, what are we going to do? I am I'm a social commentator. I'm a social activist, but more importantly, I'm an agent of change. And the purpose of the Brothers from 818 is to be a vehicle for conversation, a vehicle for taking it to the next level, a vehicle to stir up the pot to get people excited. If you think about us as a Coke bottle, we want to shake it up, give it back to you so you can open it up and get other people wet. right? So what are we doing? We're opening up these conversations, and to the person looking at it, they're like, but what are they doing? They're just going back and forth. No, we're creating conversation that now, Damani, you can take this conversation somewhere else, and you know you have 4 people to back you up. Zach, you live 2 miles from me, right? You could be somewhere and you'd be like, you know what? I don't have to do this by myself. I have somebody. Caleb, we spend so much time together, and what part of that part can we take and go have these conversations, not in our own communities, but with people that we can enact change for? Mike, we've met now and we've talked, and maybe you'll have a conversation with your captain and find out that they want to do something. You'll say, hey, I know these guys that I've been talking to that will at least come and have a real conversation with us. That's what I'm doing. That's why we do this. And so for anybody who's watching, that's what I want you to see, that yeah, we're just building up conversations. It doesn't sound like we're solving anything, but what we're doing is giving you an avenue to now continue this conversation, because we're going to continue it. We're talking to each other between the episodes. We're talking to each other in between and after the bathroom breaks and all of these different types of things, because we all are passionate on our level. And we're not necessarily disagreeing at the main point. We are looking at ways to heal the divide, reform the situations, and create accountability amongst all people. Now, how we do that, there may be some agree to disagree. There may be just some flat disagree. There may be some we agreed to be peaceful, so we're going to be, but I really feel this way about it. And that's just to be expected. I'm not here for anyone. I'm not here to say anything that someone wants to hear, nor to hear what I want to hear. I don't want to get preachy with you, but I just want to leave you with this, and this is everybody. Ecclesiastes in the Bible, chapter 3, verse 1 through 8. Says, for everything there's a season. There's a time for every activity under heaven. A time to be born, a time to die. A time to plant and a time to harvest. A time to kill and a time to heal. A time to tear down and a time to build up. A time to cry and a time to laugh. A time to grieve and a time to dance. What we are doing is planting seeds that will harvest. What are you going to do between now and then? Think about that. And we'll be back next time on the Brothers from the 818. Peace out.
Peace.
You are down with
The Brothers from the